Hello, YouTube. It's Gary. Gary Talks. Nice to see you all. There's so much on my heart and mind this week already. My goodness, it has been a crazy time. This Mercury retrograde been coming in so whoop my butt. Mercury retrograde, from my understanding, or as I've come to understand it for myself, is just a really powerful time for old patterns, old habits, a lot of things to show up, to like not test for mastery, but like essentially to like see where you are with your mastery, and also things that are unresolved are coming up to be resolved, so that that's what's happening. I was like, my car feels weird. It's on that plus thing. Coming up to be resolved, seeing where you still have areas that need to be healed, seeing basically, like, I think it's a wonderful time where, as you're becoming your greatest version and your greatest self, it is a time to like assess what still needs to be shifted, what things need to be looked at, assessed, unpacked, addressed, acknowledged, moved through, let go of, released, forgiven, all these things. I think it's a wonderful time for that. So I want to make an extended video about where my heart has been, especially in these past couple weeks, so that I know people are interested in my conversations around polyamory. So video coming soon this week. But what I wanted to talk about today was accountability. This would be really helpful if I had all my feedback animals with me. So I was in City Year. City Year is an AmeriCorps program that is focused on bridging the education gap. So providing resources through the form of mentorship, peer mentorship, in under-resourced communities. It's the easiest way to describe it. And I was a team leader my second year, so I led a team through a year of service. And one of my favorite things that we often reference was this thing called feedback animals. So feedback animals is a way to break down how people give and receive feedback into the form of animals. So using analogies to kind of understand that. So for instance, for giving feedback, the four are an eagle. So an eagle kind of surveys. They fly around for a while, taking everything in, and then they'll come in with their feedback after they've collected enough and feel certain about that. And we talked about pros and cons for everything. I'm not going to do all of that. Okay, pros and cons, let's just do it quick. Pros are obviously you get all your information before you strike, which is helpful. You have examples, all these things is very precise. Con would be that you might wait too long, right? You could have spoken up sooner, but you end up waiting, now it's later. There's that. Then there's there's a lion. So that's the one that just gives it to you straight and hot. Straight and hot. That is, good because it's direct and it's frank and there's no like beating around the bush. Bad because, or con is, it might hurt people's feelings if you don't land correctly, if you don't care about your delivery. Then there's the dog. I believe dog means that you're kind of like, if you think about dog, if you think about, what movie was that? Meet the Robinsons? No, Up, where he was like, squirrel. If you think about, it's like kind of like they'll come with their feedback, but then they get distracted by other things as they're giving you the feedback, if I remember correctly. And then the last one I want to say was rabbit, which is timid in how they give it, which is different from dog in that dog might go roundabout in how they tell you feedback, or like try to code it up with other things, like make it seem better, versus being direct. For receiving, I'm not going to do pros and cons. I think y'all can figure out pros and cons for yourself. This is just a thing that, if you, based on hearing it, what you might think. So for receiving, there is the bear. So that's the one that when he hears or she hears feedback, they rear up on their hind legs and get really big. And clap back. That's the kind of feedback. Then there is the hedgehog. Right? Shrinks up. There's the owl. Me? Not me. Then there is the cat. So the cat suffers from feedback elitism, which is basically that unless you got it together, don't come talk to me about it. They're particular about who they receive feedback from. Like, for instance, if it's from a supervisor, they will take it. If it's from a peer or someone who is below them, they may not take it. And then you can have a blend of these. The one that resonates most with me in terms of receiving feedback, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is cat. So I I, for the most part, will listen to anybody. Like, if a homeless person came up to me on the street to tell me some feedback, I would listen. Depends on what it is, right? If you're going to give me professional advice, I may not, just based on your circumstance. At the same time, that doesn't mean I dismiss people's opinions, you know, just because I think they're less than me or I'm better than them. I am definitely, I guess, a snob in that if you don't have a happy life, I don't particularly want to hear about your tips on what happiness looks like for life. Unless there's a specific thing that you find a lot of joy in, I'd love to hear it, you know? That's just me personally. And I've struggled with receiving feedback throughout my life. I've often been like, I know, right? A head ass. Also, like, taking things personally and being insecure. So when people say things, it taps on my own insecurity. I feel like they're making fun of me or mocking me. All personal things that I have been, that have been in my face that I've been dealing with a lot. So, like, when it comes to feedback now, I realize, like, I listen to feedback. I still have my emotions at times, they'll rise, but I'm very much able to, like, put them down and, like, at least be like, okay, remain open. Because before I would be unopen entirely and, like, shut down when I hear people give me feedback. And so what I wanted to talk about today in regards to accountability is who holds you accountable when ain't nobody could have you, right? If ain't nobody could get me and I'm big and bad, and really nobody, not very many people in my life hold me accountable, because I mean, the people haven't, because they don't feel that way. They don't feel inclined to do so. Also because I haven't always made it the easiest, and a lot of people I feel like a lot of people look at me like, oh, she got it together, so what would I need to hold her accountable for? Plenty of things. And also, like, accountability is a relationship, right? It's a relationship that there's a give and take. So what I have found is that sometimes if I have someone who's accountable, who I'm accountable with, when I fall off, they don't come back and hold me to it. They'll tend to be like, they'll maybe hit me up once and then that's it. Which is fair, because you don't need to chase nobody down. We're grown out here. At the same time, it's been really challenging to grow when nobody is really bold enough to hold you accountable or to check you. And the times that I've gotten checked, because there's so much built up around it, it often ends up as somebody snapping at me or blacking on me. And that's also how it's received, because I'm already feeling like sometimes I think about a person who gives me really excellent feedback every time I reflect on it, but in the time I'm like, get out of here with this feedback, is my dad. He said there was one time, for instance, he told me that I need to make myself priority number one. And obviously initially I had all these feelings, right, about like, who are you to tell me this? Like, I've never been your number one. All these emotions, right, coming up. That doesn't discredit the fact that I do need to treat myself like I'm my first priority. And I've noticed that cat feedback people, or people who just can't be told something, always got something to say, right, about being and trying to establish being right over just receiving what is being received. And I don't know if I made a video about this, but I did have an emotional moment. I'll share it here, for instance. So one of my good friends, Charlie, they were featured in one of my videos. Charlie and I were doing cleaning in our room separately, and then I was going to Goodwill to, drop off the things. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll take your stuff. So we went to go do that. Timing ended up not working out, so I had to move everything into the trunk because I needed to use my back seat. So it was sitting in the trunk for maybe at that point like 2 weeks. And so I was with Charlie like, oh snap, I forgot about that thing. Let me I have to remember to do that. And Charlie was like, but why is it still with you? Why haven't you done that, right? And I was like, I just haven't made it to Goodwill because it's never really on the way, and timing and stuff. And they were like, but the purpose of you having the things was to go to Goodwill, so it shouldn't have to be on the way, right? It should just be, you should go there because that's the task at hand. That's what you needed. And I was like, yes, but also I just haven't done that. And then I think what was I saying? I was trying to just say like why I haven't, in terms of not having enough time and this and that. They're like, so you want these things in your car then? And I was like, no. And they're like, so basically, why are you arguing about why you still have them? Because excuses, trying to justify why I have these things when I don't want them. They should not be here, and I just should have given them away, or I need to move to give them away. And it wasn't until the end that Charlie also realized that a question to ask, and this is like an example of how accountability looks, is to say, okay, so when are you going to remove those things from your car, right? Because asking these rumination kind of questions, why didn't you do it, It's important to know, right? But at the same time, when you're out of integrity or if you broke a commitment, the why, you kind of just out of integrity. So I suppose you should know your why so that it doesn't happen again. But truly, that doesn't really serve anything, right? So why do I still have the stuff in the car? I have all these excuses, but that doesn't really, that to me, that's not acceptable, because the end goal, the outcome that we want is these things gone. So I'm not gonna, if I accept these things, yeah, I can hear that, I can be like, okay, I feel that, but also, again, that doesn't change the fact that you still haven't done this thing. And so I've been allowing myself to be snatched up a little bit more, because I realize I really enjoy snatching people, right? That's like my way of giving feedback. I guess I am a little bit of a lion, but like that means I also receive it that way, to be honest, because the times that it snatches me up most is the times that I get snatched up. So it's been crazy really to think about holding myself accountable, right? And also teaching other people how to hold me accountable. So like having to remind people, hey, don't let me off the hook, bruh. Like don't let me give you this response. But then also, it's just, I don't know, it's been challenging, because I kind of want somebody, obviously, who would be able to do that for me without me having to teach them and tell them how to. And I know that person's out there, but also I'm not attracting them into my space, because there's still parts of me that are like, stop, keep that over there. So that's what I'm working on. And I've never really identified in my life, like, I want somebody to hold me accountable. So these are things to get clear on, because I'm realizing now, as I've been holding myself accountable and being firm with myself, how much I have been able to slide with a lot of things, and I don't want that. So yeah, things to think about, and happy to be thinking about them. What does accountability look like in your life? Who holds you accountable? Who do you hold accountable? Who have you spoken to about accountability? What was accountability? What were those conversations like growing up? Or if you're like, where did you learn your concepts of accountability? I learned it from my uncle and from my family. And then really learned it as a team leader. Other people, it might be a sports team. It might be church. It might be also family. Wherever you learned it, I'd love to hear. So thank ya. Have a great day.